The city never slept, but it did not care. Neon lights glowed above the streets. Flashing colors in the cold night air, the towers reached high into the purple sky, covered in glass and steel. Crowds moved along the wide walkways, voices mixing. With the sound of hover cars passing overhead, it was full of life. But for her, it felt like the loneliest place in the universe. She sat in a narrow alley between two massive buildings, her back pressed against a cold metal wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. Trying to keep in the little warmth she had left, the air smelled of oil, smoke, and strange alien spices from the food stalls nearby. But none of it mattered. Her stomach was empty, and her heart even emptier. She was not human. Her skin had a faint blue shade. Her eyes bright silver, small scars marked her arms, memories of places she didn't want to remember. She wore a torn coat she had found in the trash weeks ago. It was too thin for the cold nights. Every gust of wind cut through her like a knife. She watched the people passing by at the end of the alley. Tall insectoid merchants carrying crates, small furry aliens hurrying to catch the tram, metal-bodied. Workers from the drone factories, and even a few rare off-world travelers. They all walked past without looking at her. To them, she was just another piece of the city's dirt. Above her, a patrol drone floated slowly by. Its red scanner light swept across the alley entrance. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows. If it saw her without a citizen tag, it would alert the enforcers. They would drag her to the detention zones. No one ever came back from there. She had learned how to hide, how to move only when the patrols were gone, how to find scraps of food in the bins behind restaurants. But tonight felt different. The air was colder, the streets quieter than usual, and the hunger in her belly felt sharper than it ever had before. A drop of rain landed on her cheek, then another, and soon the neon lights blurred through, falling. Water. She pulled the hood of her coat over her head. Her legs ached, but she stayed still. She had nowhere else to go. She had no one. Her thoughts drifted to the day she had arrived in this city. It was supposed to be a place of safety. That was what she had been told, but the truth had been cruel. No one helped outsiders without credits or a registered ID. She was invisible. Invisible, but not safe. Her silver eyes stared at the street again. That was when she noticed him. A tall figure walking slowly through the rain. Not like the others, who hurried with their heads down. This one moved as if he was searching for something or someone. The stranger stepped into the light of a flickering street sign. She saw his face human. She froze. Humans were rare here. She had only seen a few, and the stories about them were always strange. Some said they were dangerous warriors. Others said they were kind, but foolish. She did not know which to believe. The man stopped near the alley entrance. For a moment, she thought he had not seen her. Then his head turned, and his eyes locked on hers. They were dark and steady. Not cold, not cruel, but something else. Something she couldn't name. Her first instinct was to look away. Strangers were trouble, especially ones who noticed you. But she couldn't move. Something in his gaze kept her frozen. The human stepped closer. The rain dripped from the edge of his long coat. When he reached her, he crouched down to her level. Up close, she could see small scars across his jaw. His clothes looked worn, but his presence was strong. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver packet. He held it out to her without a word. She hesitated. It could be a trick. Food was not free in this city, and she had nothing to give in return. Her hands tightened around her knees. Her stomach growled loudly. The man didn't move the packet away. He just waited, his expression calm. Finally, her hunger won. She reached out slowly, her thin fingers brushing the metal wrapper. It was warm. She looked at him again, searching for any sign of danger. But he only gave a small nod. She opened. The packet inside was a steaming piece of bread-like food. The smell hit her instantly, rich and soft. She took a bite. It was the first real food she had tasted in days. "Not safe here," the man said quietly. His voice was low, but clear. She swallowed hard. Unsure what he meant, before she could ask, a sharp, mechanical hum filled the air. A patrol drone was coming back. Its red lights cut through the rain. Scanning the street, the human glanced toward the sound, then back at her, without warning. He reached out his hand. "Come," he said. Her heart raced. She didn't know him, but she knew the drone, and she knew what it would do if it saw her. She stared at his hand for half a heartbeat. Then she took it, and the moment she did, he pulled her into the shadows. The rain swallowed their footsteps as they ran. The city lights faded behind them, and for the first time in a long time, she felt not safe, but not completely alone. The rain fell harder, turning the streets into shining rivers. The human's grip was strong, but not painful. He led her quickly through the narrow back alleys, avoiding the main road where the patrol drone hovered. Every few seconds, he glanced behind them, as if he expected trouble. His movements were fast but controlled, like someone used to escaping. She stumbled once, her foot catching on a loose metal grate. He stopped instantly, steadying her with one hand. "You okay?" he asked in a low voice. She only nodded, unsure if she could trust her voice. They kept moving, their footsteps splashing through shallow puddles. The alley opened into a covered market street, long abandoned for the night. Shuttered stalls stood, silent, colorful banners hanging torn and faded in the far corner. A flickering holosign still buzzed faintly. The human stopped there, pulling her into the shadow of a half-broken archway. "Here," he said, reaching into the inside of his coat. This time, he took out a thin metal canister, twisting the top to release a small puff of steam. Warm air drifted out, carrying the smell of broth. He handed it to her without asking. She hesitated again, but hunger made the choice for her. The first sip burned her tongue, but the warmth spread through her chest like sunlight. She lowered the canister and looked at him more closely. His hair was dark, a little messy, and there were lines at the corners of his eyes, not the lines of an old man, but the marks of someone who had seen too much. A faint scar ran down the side of his neck, disappearing under his collar. His coat was patched in several places. He was no rich traveler. Why? She finally asked, her voice hoarse from days without speaking. He tilted his head slightly. "Why? What? Why help me?" A faint smile touched his lips. "Because no one else will," he said simply. That answer confused her even more. In this city, help always came with a price. She had learned that quickly, but this man, this human, hadn't asked for anything. Not her name, not her story, not even a promise. It didn't make sense. She wanted to ask more. But the sound of distant engines made them both freeze. He turned his head slightly. "Listening, patrol," he muttered. She felt her chest tighten. The drones must have tracked them. The human reached out his hand again. "Move," he said, his voice calm but urgent. They left the market and slipped into another narrow passage. This one was darker, lined with old pipes and rusted metal doors. The air was warmer here, thick with the smell of damp machinery. Water dripped steadily from somewhere above. Every turn seemed to take them deeper under the city's skin. "How do you know where to go?" she asked after a while. "I've been here before," he replied. She frowned. Humans didn't usually stay in this city. It was a place where outsiders got swallowed, but he moved like someone who knew its every shadow. Finally, they stopped. In front of a huge, rust-covered service door, he pressed a hidden switch, and the door slid open with a low hiss. Beyond it was a dimly lit tunnel, stretching into darkness. She hesitated at the threshold. He noticed, turning to look at her. "You can walk away," he said, his voice softer now. "I'm not your enemy. But if you stay out there, the city will eat you alive." Something in his tone made her believe him. She stepped inside, and the door closed behind them. The tunnel smelled faintly of oil and ozone. Faint lights blinked along the walls, leading. Deeper in, their footsteps echoed on the metal floor after a few minutes. The tunnel opened into a hidden chamber. It was small, filled with crates and old machinery. In the center was a low table with a worn map projected above it. She stared at the glowing image. It wasn't just a map of the city. It showed routes leading far beyond it, into the black of space. The human took off his coat, hanging it. On a hook by the wall, underneath, he wore a utility vest with several strange devices clipped to it. He moved with quiet confidence. Checking the room's small console, when he noticed her staring at the map, he said, "Ever been off-world?" She shook her head. He studied her for a moment, as if weighing a decision. "My name's Rin," he said at last. She didn't reply. He smiled faintly. "You don't have to tell me yours." Not yet. Before she could respond, a sudden alarm flashed on the console, a red light pulsed, and the screen showed a moving signal. Rin cursed under his breath. "They found us faster than I thought." He grabbed his coat again, pulling it on. "We need to move." Now, she felt fear grip. Her chest, "Where?" She asked. "Somewhere they can't follow." He replied. He picked up a small pack, slinging it over one shoulder. Then he turned to her, holding out his hand for the third time that night. She stared at it, her mind racing. Going with him meant stepping into the unknown. But staying here meant the patrols would catch her. Her heart pounded as she placed her hand in his again. His grip tightened, steady and sure. Without another word, Rin led her toward another door at the back of the chamber. It slid open to reveal a sloping corridor. At the far end, she saw the faint outline of something. Large, metallic, and waiting. She didn't know it yet, but that would be the first time she ever saw a starship. The corridor tilted downward, and the air grew colder with each step. Faint emergency lights glowed along the walls, throwing long shadows across the metal floor. Behind them, the sound of distant engines echoed, not the hum of the cities. Traffic, but the heavy mechanical growl of patrol crafts. They were close. Rin moved quickly, but without panic. His grip on her hand was firm, guiding her through the twists of the underground path. She had no idea where they were going. All she knew was that the danger was getting closer. Her silver eyes kept darting to the shadows, expecting drones, too. Appear at any second. At the end of the corridor, they reached a heavy security door. Rin stopped, pressing his palm to a control panel. The panel lit up blue for a second, scanning, then nothing. A flat red light appeared. Access denied. A cold machine voice said. Her chest tightened. "They're coming," she whispered. Rin's jaw clenched. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, black device with wires. In seconds, he had removed the panel's cover and connected the wires to his own gadget. "Hold this," he said, handing her a small cylinder. She didn't know what it was, but she held it tight. Sparks jumped from the wires as he worked. The sound of engines grew louder, this time followed by the faint metallic click-click of drone legs moving across the floor. Her heart hammered. "They're here," she gasped. "Almost." He muttered. A green light flashed on the panel, and the door slid open with a deep hiss. Rin grabbed the cylinder from her hand, shoved it into his pocket, and pulled her through. The moment they were inside, he slammed the door shut. The sound of metal locking into place echoed through the corridor, but it wouldn't hold forever. The new space they entered was vast, an underground hangar. Dim lights shone from the ceiling, revealing the sleek outline of a ship resting. In the center, it wasn't large, but it looked built for speed. Its black hull reflected the faint light like water. Strange alien symbols were painted along the side. But parts of it were patched with human tech, square plates, and steel beams that didn't match the curved alien design. Rin didn't slow down. "This way," he said, leading her to the boarding ramp. the ship's outer shell hummed softly, like a sleeping animal ready to wake. As they reached the ramp, the sound of metal scraping echoed from the other side of the hangar. A door was opening, and it wasn't theirs. Shapes appeared in the shadows, thin, insect-like patrol enforcers, their silver armor glinting under the lights. Their long, clawed legs clicked against the floor as they moved in. Behind them, small drones floated, red lights scanning the hangar. Rin cursed under his breath. Inside, he ordered. She ran up the ramp into the ship, her boots thudding on the metal. The interior was tight but clean, narrow hallways, low ceilings, and control panels filled with blinking lights. She didn't have time to look around before Rin ran past her to the cockpit. He dropped into the pilot's seat and started pressing switches in a rapid sequence. The ship came alive with a low, rising hum. She stood frozen in the doorway until Rin pointed sharply to the co-pilot's seat. "Sit." "Strap in," he said, without looking at her. She obeyed, fumbling with the harness. The sound of gunfire hit the ship's hull, sharp, metallic clangs. "They're shooting at us." She cried. "No," Rin said, adjusting the controls. "They're trying to disable the engine." Big difference. She wasn't sure how that made it better. The hangar's main lights turned red. A mechanical voice echoed through the space. "Unauthorized launch detected." All exits sealed on the display screen in front of her. The massive hangar door was closing, slow but steady. They had seconds. Rin's hands moved faster. The ship's engines roared to life, shaking the floor beneath them. "Hold on," he said. The ship lifted from the ground, hover thrusters blasting dust and papers across the hangar floor. The patrol enforcers moved in, their weapons now glowing with a pulsing blue light. One of the drones flew closer, aiming a laser at the cockpit. A beam of light shot toward them, but Rin jerked the ship sharply to the side. The beam sliced past, hitting the wall and leaving a smoking scar. "Come on, come on," Rin muttered, watching the hangar doors. The gap was shrinking fast. She gripped the seat harness so tightly her fingers hurt. He pushed the throttle forward, and the ship surged ahead. The hum turned into a deafening roar as they shot toward the narrowing opening. The enforcers fired again, the shots sparking across the ship's shields. The entire cabin shook violently. Then they were through. For one dizzying second, she saw the city sprawling out beneath them, neon lights glowing under the rain, and then the view vanished as the ship angled sharply upward. She felt her stomach drop as they climbed higher and higher. The sky shifted from purple to black. Stars appeared, cold and endless. The sound of the city faded, replaced by the steady hum of the ship's systems. Rin finally leaned back in his seat, letting out a slow breath. She looked at him, still shaking. "Why? Why are you helping me?" She asked again, her voice trembling. This time, he glanced at her, and there was something in his eyes, something old and heavy. "Because someone once did the same for me," he said quietly. Before she could respond, a soft beeping came. From the console, Rin's eyes narrowed. "They're still tracking us," he said, "and they're not giving up." The ship's engine settled into a steady hum through the cockpit glass. The stars stretched in every direction far below. The alien city had shrunk to a cluster of lights in the endless dark. But even here, in the silence of space, the sense of danger lingered. Rin leaned forward, checking the glowing screens in front of him. Small dots pulsed on the radar, each one a patrol craft. "They'll follow until they can't," he said quietly. His hands moved over the controls, adjusting speed and direction with practiced precision. She sat still, her fingers still curled around the straps of her seat. Her chest rose and fell in slow, careful breaths. It was her first time in space. The quiet was strange. No crowd noise, market shouts, no drones buzzing overhead. Only the deep hum of the ship's systems and the soft clicks of Rin's work. After a while, the dots on the radar began to fade. "They've lost us," For now, Rin said, leaning back slightly. He looked at her. You can breathe. We're safe. She wasn't sure if she believed that, but her grip on the straps loosened just a little. Rin stood, gesturing for her to follow. Come on. You should see where you are, she hesitated. Then unbuckled her harness and followed him through the narrow corridor. The interior of the ship was unlike anything she had seen before. The walls were lined with panels covered in both alien script and human markings. Some parts were sleek and curved, smooth as glass. Others were patched with rough steel plates, bolts sticking out like scars. It looked like a machine built by two worlds that had never meant to work together. But somehow, they passed a small room with a row of storage crates. Rin tapped one, and it hissed open to reveal neatly stacked food packets and water canisters. You're free to take what you need, he said. Her stomach growled at the sight, but she didn't reach for anything. Old habits told her that nothing was free. Farther. Down the corridor, they entered a wider room. A faint blue glow came from the ceiling, casting soft light over a round table with a holographic projector in the center. The projector was on, showing a rotating map of several star systems. Lines connected different planets, some glowing green, others flashing red. She stepped closer, eyes wide. What is this? Our routes, Rin said. Places we can go. Places we can't. Her gaze drifted to one red-marked world. Why can't you go there? She asked. Rin's eyes followed hers. Because they'd kill me the moment I landed. He said simply. He didn't explain more, and she didn't. They continued toward the back of the ship until they reached a small compartment with a single narrow bed. It was plain, just a mattress, a folded blanket, and a small shelf with a single book resting on it. You can stay here, Rin said. She blinked at him. This is mine. For now, he said. She stepped inside, touching the edge of the blanket. It was warm, softer than anything she had used in years. When she turned, Rin was still watching her. You're not safe in that city, he said. They don't care what happens to people without papers and patrol drones. They don't ask questions. I know, she said quietly. Then you also know you can't go back. Silence hung between them for a moment. Finally, she asked, why? Me? Rin didn't answer right away. He looked toward the floor, as if weighing his words. Because I saw someone in that alley who reminded me of a long time ago. He didn't say more. But there was a heaviness in his tone that made her chest tighten. The ship gave a small shudder, breaking the moment. Rin turned toward the corridor. Stay here. I'll check the navigation. He left. His footsteps fading into the hum of the ship. She sat on the bed for a while, listening to the faint sounds of engines and systems working in the background. Her eyes drifted to the small book on the shelf. The cover was worn, the pages slightly yellowed. She opened it and saw words in two different languages. One she didn't know, and one that was clearly human. The first page had a handwritten note for those we couldn't save, and for those we still can. Before she could read more, a soft beep echoed through the ship. The sound was different, urgent. She stood and stepped into the corridor, following the sound to the cockpit. Rin was there, eyes locked on the radar. The dots had returned, 3 of them, moving fast. They found us again, she asked. Not them, Rin said, his voice tight. Something worse. One of the dots on the screen glowed a deep orange. Rin tapped it, and a small image appeared. A sleek, black vessel with no visible markings. What is it? She asked. Hunters, he said. She frowned. Patrol hunters. No, Rin said, his eyes hard. These don't work for the city. They work for whoever pays them the most. Her chest tightened. Why are they after you? Rin's gaze flicked to her for a second. They're not after me, he said. They're after you. The orange dot on the radar moved faster than the others. It wasn't just following, it was closing in. Rin's hands moved across the controls, shifting the ship's course, but the dot adjusted instantly. Matching their every turn, they know exactly where we are, he muttered. His eyes didn't leave the screen. Her voice trembled as she asked, why? Why would they be after me? He didn't answer at first. Instead, he adjusted the ship's power, dimming the lights and rerouting energy to the engines. They're not after you because of what you've done, Rin said finally. They're after you because of what you are, she frowned. What I am? Nothing. I'm no one. That's what they want you to believe, he said quietly. The hum of the engines deepened as the ship accelerated. Rin tapped a control, and a faint blue shimmer appeared around the hull. A temporary stealth field. It'll hide us from basic scans, he said, but not from them for long. She leaned forward, gripping the edge of her seat. Tell me the truth, Rin, she said. You pulled me out of that alley. You've been running ever since. Why? He glanced at her, not a quick glance, but one that held her gaze. When I was younger, I wasn't much different from you, he began. I was stranded on a world that didn't want me. No ID, no home. I was just another mouth they didn't want to feed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. So someone saved you? He nodded. Yeah, a human trader named Mara. She took me off-world, gave me food, shelter, and something more important, a reason to live. He leaned back, watching the stars drift past outside. But it didn't last, he continued, his voice lower now. Mara was part of a group called the Reach. We rescued people, not just humans. Anyone trapped or hunted in the outer systems. Her heart beat faster. Like me? Exactly like you, Rin said. Too many governments and syndicates out here treat people without tags as disposable. The Reach tried to stop that. She could see the way his jaw tightened when he spoke. What happened to them? She asked. Rin's eyes darkened. The wrong people noticed. We were declared criminals. One by one, the Reach ships were hunted down. Mara's ship didn't make it. Silence filled the cockpit for a moment, broken only by the hum of the ship's systems. Rin's gaze drifted to the radar again. The orange dot was still there. Closer now. I promised myself I'd never get involved again, he said. Too many people died because of me. I told myself I'd just keep my head down, survive, and let the galaxy do what it wanted. She tilted her head. Then why break your promise? He didn't hesitate this time. Because? When I saw you in that alley, I saw the same look I had the day Mara found me. That look that says you've already accepted you'll die out there. He shook his head. I couldn't walk away. Her throat felt tight. No one's ever done that for me before, she said softly. He gave a faint smile. Then maybe it's time someone did. The console beeped again, sharper this time. The orange dot had split into two. The hunters had deployed smaller craft. They're trying to flank us, Rin said, gripping the controls. The ship tilted sharply, sending her back against her seat outside. The stars blurred into streaks as they moved at high speed. Her voice was barely above a whisper. If they catch us, what will they do to me? Rin's tone was grim. They'll sell you. Maybe to the ones who run the detention zones. Maybe to someone worse. But either way, you won't survive long. She swallowed hard. And you? He glanced at her. I'll be dead before I let them take you. They sped toward the edge of the system. Rin brought up a star map on the main display. There's a dead zone about 100,000 clicks from here. No comms, no scans, no traffic. If we can reach it, we can disappear. She nodded quickly, then go. He pushed the throttle forward. The ship's engines roared, the hull rattling as they accelerated. The hunters' smaller craft darted behind them, closing the gap. Rin switched power to the rear shields, sparks of blue light rippling across the display. A blast from one of the enemy ships hit, jolting them hard. "Shields holding," Rin said. His voice steady. Despite the chaos, she clung to the edge of her seat. "What if they don't?" "Then we improvise," he replied, a hint of a grin at the corner of his mouth. They weaved through a drifting field of ice and rock, the ship sliding between massive fragments of frozen water. The hunters fired again, but the shots hit the floating ice instead, sending shards spinning into space. "Almost there," Rin muttered, his eyes fixed ahead. The edge of the dead zone shimmered faintly in the distance, a thin, glowing haze marking the border where sensors would fail. Another blast rocked the ship. Alarms blaring, they're hitting harder. She shouted. "Then we go faster," Rin said, slamming the throttle to maximum. The ship shook violently, every metal plate in the hull rattling, but the haze drew closer, closer. A final, desperate barrage of enemy fire lit up the darkness. Behind them, the shields flared, groaned, but held, and then they crossed into the dead zone. The radar blinked once, twice, and went blank. No dots, no tracking, only silence. Rin finally leaned back, breathing out slowly. "For now," he said. "We're ghosts." She stared at him. "You risked your life for someone you barely know." He shrugged slightly. "Mara once told me, sometimes you have to be the one who stays when everyone else walks away." She didn't know it yet, but for the first time in years, she had begun to believe she might live to see tomorrow. The dead zone was silent. No radar beeps, no chasing dots, no warning lights outside the cockpit window. The stars hung still in the black void. For a few minutes, it almost felt peaceful. Rin sat back in the pilot's chair, his hands resting lightly on the controls. The hum of the ship's engines was steady now. "No strain, no vibration. They can't see us here," he said. "They can't track us. They can't scan us. We're safe." But she didn't relax. Her silver eyes kept scanning the darkness beyond the glass. The dead zone felt wrong, like the galaxy had forgotten this place. The space here felt heavier, thicker. Even the stars seemed dimmer. "How long will we stay here?" she asked. "Not long," Rin said. "We'll wait until the hunters give up their perimeter. Then we head to the colony, and if they wait for us..." He gave her a faint grin. "Then we make them wish they hadn't." She tried to smile back, but it didn't last. Her instincts told her something was still out there, hidden, waiting. An hour passed in silence. Rin checked the instruments again. Still nothing. Then, from somewhere deep in the ship, a faint thud echoed through the metal walls. Her head snapped up. What was that? Rin's eyes narrowed. That didn't come from outside. He rose from his seat, moving quickly down the corridor. She followed close behind. The lights in the ship's narrow hallways flickered as they walked. They stopped at the airlock. The source of the sound, Rin pressed the control panel, bringing up the external feed. The screen flickered to life, showing the outer hull and something clinging to it. It was black, with long hooked limbs. Its body was flat against the ship like a shadow. "What is it?" she whispered. Rin's voice was grim. "A tracker." It wasn't a machine in the usual sense. It moved like a living thing. Its claws dug into the hull, anchoring it to the ship. A small red light blinked on its head. "They must have planted it before we entered the dead zone," Rin said, "even without sensors. It can transmit a signal once we leave," she felt. A rush of panic. "Can we remove it?" "Not from inside," Rin said. "We'd have to go out there." He glanced at her. "And it's not just a tracker. If it senses tampering, it'll send a beacon immediately." Before she could ask what that meant, a sudden alarm blared in the cockpit. They both ran back. On the radar, the blank screen had come alive again. 1 dot, then 2, then 5. All closing fast. "They found us," she said. Rin's jaw tightened. They didn't give up. They were waiting for us to move. He dropped into the pilot's seat. "Hold on," he said. Powering the engines, the hum rose into a deep roar. The ship shot forward, leaving the dead zone's haze behind. Almost instantly, the hunters appeared. Behind them, 3 sleek ships, black as the void. Their engines glowing cold blue. The lead craft fired a bright lance of energy streaked past their hull, shields up. Rin barked, the ship's blue shimmer returned, absorbing the next hit with a dull flash. The hunters fanned out, trying to box them in. Rin jerked the controls, the ship spinning hard to the left. The stars outside became a blur. She gripped the side of her seat, teeth clenched against the sudden pull of gravity. "Where are we going?" She shouted over the noise. "Somewhere they can't follow," Rin said. His eyes flicked to the star map. "There's a mining belt to systems over. Too many rocks for them to keep formation. We can lose them there." The hunters kept firing. Each shot shaking the hull, sparks flew from one of the side panels, filling the cockpit with the smell of burning wires. Shields at 60%. Rin said through gritted teeth. She swallowed hard. "If they break through, they won't." He cut her off. "Not if I can help it." The ship roared into faster-than-light mode, stars stretching into long silver trails. But the hunters matched their speed. "They've upgraded." Rin muttered, "They shouldn't be able to keep up like this." Suddenly, the tracker's red light flashed on the external camera. Rin cursed under his breath. "They're locked on us. We need to shake that thing off." Without warning, he slammed the ship into a violent roll. The world spun in her vision as the stars twisted around them. The tracker clung tighter, its claws digging in deeper. Another blast hit the shields. This one stronger. The cockpit lights flickered, shields at 30%. Rin said, his voice stayed calm, but she could see the tension in his jaw. They burst into the mining belt, a field of massive spinning rocks, some as big as cities, others no larger than a transport ship. Chunks of ice and metal drifted in every direction. Lit by the distant glow of a red star, the hunters followed. But their formation broke. "Now's our chance," Rin said, weaving between the tumbling asteroids. One of the hunter ships clipped a chunk of rock, spinning off course. Another lost sight of them entirely in the debris. Rin swerved sharply. Scraping close to a jagged wall of iron ore, the tracker slammed into the rock, its claws tearing free. From the hull, it tumbled away into the darkness. Rin's eyes flicked to the radar. To Hunter's left, he pushed the ship into a sharp dive, using the shadow of a massive asteroid to break line of sight. When they emerged on the other side, the radar was clear, only empty space ahead. Rin finally slowed the ship, letting the engines cool. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "That," he said, was close. She sat still, heart still pounding. "You risked both of us," she said. He glanced at her. "Sometimes that's the only way to win." She looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time since she had met him, she realized Rin didn't just survive danger. He ran toward it if it meant protecting someone else. The mining belt faded behind them. The last trace of the hunters was gone, swallowed by the drifting shadows of rock and ice. For the first time since she had stepped into Rin's world, there was no sound of pursuit, no flash of enemy fire. Only the steady hum of the ship's engines, carrying them into the open stars. Rin kept the ship at a steady cruise, hands light on the controls. His eyes scanned the displays. But his shoulders had finally eased. "We're clear," he said at last. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her body sank deeper into the co-pilot's seat, the tension draining from her muscles. They flew in silence. For a while, outside, the stars drifted past, some bright and sharp, others distant and faint. A small planet turned slowly in the distance, pale blue oceans under swirls of white clouds. It looked peaceful, untouched by the chaos they had. Left behind, what is that? She asked, nodding toward it, Vera's haven. Rin said, a human colony. Small, independent. They don't ask questions about where you came from. It's what you want to do next. Her silver eyes lingered on the planet. It felt warm, even from here. So that's where you're taking me? She asked. That's where I'm taking us, he corrected. You need a safe place. And I. He paused, his gaze flicking to the stars before returning to her. I think I'm done running jobs in dead-end systems. Maybe it's time. To stay somewhere for a while, the idea of staying felt strange to her. She had never stayed anywhere. Not for long. She had always been moving, hiding, surviving. The thought of stopping, of being somewhere safe, almost felt impossible. Will they even want me there? She asked quietly. Rin turned in his seat to face her fully. They'll want you because I'm telling them you belong there. She looked down. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. You're still here. You fought to survive. And when the hunters came, you didn't freeze. You moved. That's enough for me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her hands twisted in her lap. No one had ever spoken about her like that before. Not like she mattered. It's not like she could be more than a shadow in an alley. Rin tapped a control, and the ship angled toward the planet. The pale blue sphere began to grow larger in the window. He slowed their speed, letting the ship drift closer at a calm pace. Take a good look, he said. This could be your home. She stared at it, feeling something in her chest she couldn't name. It was heavy and light at the same time. Hope, that's what it was. Small, fragile, but real when they entered. The atmosphere, the ship shuddered slightly. Golden light flared outside the windows as they cut through the upper layers. Below, she saw sprawling green fields, silver rivers winding like threads, and clusters of buildings surrounded by trees. It was nothing like the cold, crowded streets she had known. Here, everything seemed open, breathing, alive. Rin guided the ship toward a small landing port on the edge of the settlement. People moved. Below, some loading cargo, others walking in small groups. There were humans, yes, but also other species, living together without the guarded stairs she had seen in the city. The ship touched down with a soft thud. Rin powered down the engines. The hum fading into silence, he stood and turned to her. This is where you decide, he said. You can step out there and make it yours. Or you can tell me to take you somewhere else. Anywhere you want, she hesitated, her fingers tightening on the armrest. Stepping out meant starting something new, something she had never had. But staying on the ship meant going back to the only life she'd known, running, hiding, waiting for the next danger. She looked at him. And if I stay with you? His eyebrows lifted slightly. You want to stay? I don't know, she said honestly, but I don't want to go alone. For a moment, his face softened. Then he nodded once. Then we do this together, he said. They walked down the ramp side by side. The air was fresh and warm, carrying the scent of grass and earth. The sky was bright, painted with drifting white clouds. It felt unreal, like stepping into another world entirely. And in a way, it was. A few people at the port glanced at them. One man waved to Rin, who returned the gesture with a nod. Friends? She asked. Not yet, he said, but they will be. They moved toward the main street of the settlement. Children laughed in the distance. Chasing each other across a field, merchants called out their goods from small market stalls. The sound was alive, but not harsh or hurried. It was the sound of people living without fear. For the first time, she realized she wasn't looking for exits. She wasn't scanning for threats or hiding in shadows. She was simply walking. Rin glanced at her as they passed a row of houses. Feels different, doesn't it? She nodded slowly. It feels like I could belong here. He smiled faintly. Then you do. And in that moment, under the warm sun of a world, She had never known. She understood something. She wasn't homeless anymore. She wasn't cold. And she wasn't alone, for the first time in her life. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with someone who had chosen to stay.